Chapter 1. The Velvet Enigma. The rain fell in silver sheets across the English countryside, turning the winding road to Ashbourne Manor into a glistening ribbon under the carriage's lantern light. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in his tailored overcoat, adjusted his moustache with a gloved finger, his sharp green eyes peering through the window. The invitation to Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's dinner had been unexpected, arriving at his London flat with a flourish of elegant calligraphy and a faint scent of lavender. "Mon ami," he murmured to Captain Hastings, seated opposite. "There is something in the air tonight, a mystery perhaps waiting to unfold." Hastings, ever the optimist, chuckled. "Oh, come now, Poirot. It's just a dinner party. Lady Ashbourne sept's known for her collections, old books, rare jewels, probably wants to show off a new trinket." Poirot's lips curved slightly. "None, Hastings. An invitation so sudden from a widow so reclusive is never merely for trinkets. The little grey cells, they sense a purpose." He tapped his temple, his gaze returning to the shadowed manor looming ahead. Ashbourne Manor stood like a sentinel against the storm, its Gothic spires piercing the night sky. The carriage halted, and Poirot stepped onto the gravel drive, his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the weather. Inside, the grand hall was a vision of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over marble floors, and portraits of stern Ashbourne ancestors lined the walls. Lady Evelyn, a tall woman with silver hair and a regal air, greeted them with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings." "How delightful," she said, her voice smooth but tinged with strain. "You honor us with your presence." She gestured to the drawing-room, where a dozen guests mingled, their laughter a fragile veneer over an undercurrent of tension. Poirot's eyes scanned the room, cataloguing each face with precision. There was Sir Reginald Ashbourne, Lady Evelyn's cousin, a portly man with a nervous habit of tugging his cufflinks. Miss Clara Vane, a young heiress with a sharp tongue and sharper gaze. Dr. Mortimer Hale, a historian with ink-stained fingers and a distracted air, and Mr. Julian Carver, a solicitor whose smile seemed too practiced. Others filled the room, local gentry, a retired colonel, a widowed poetess, all orbiting Lady Evelyn's wealth like moths around a flame. Dinner was a lavish affair, with courses of roasted pheasant and delicate soufflés served under the watchful eyes of liveried footmen. Poirot, seated beside Lady Evelyn, noted her frequent glances toward the library door, barely concealed by her polite inquiries about his recent cases. "You are a collector, madame," he remarked, sipping his wine. "What treasures do you guard in this fine manner?" Her fingers tightened around her glass. "Oh, books, artifacts, the usual passions of an old woman with too much time." Her laugh was brittle, and Poirot's eyes narrowed. The usual passions indeed, he thought, sensing a lie. After dinner, the guests retired to the library, a cavernous room lined with leather-bound tomes and lit by a roaring fire. Hastings, ever curious, wandered to a display case where a velvet diary caught his eye. Its deep crimson cover was embossed with a golden crest, and a brass clasp gleamed in the firelight. "Look at this, Poirot," he called, drawing attention. "Quite the antique, isn't it?" Before Poirot could respond, Clara Vane approached, her eyes alight with curiosity. "That's no ordinary diary," she said, reaching for it. "It's said to belong to the first Lady Ashbourne, from a century ago." She opened it, revealing pages filled with elegant script, cryptic symbols, and a folded map sketched in faded ink. Lady Evelyn's face paled. "Please, Miss Vane, it's delicate," she said, moving to reclaim it, but Dr. Hale interjected, peering over his spectacles. "Fascinating. Those symbols resemble alchemical codes. Could it be tied to the Ashbourne fortune?" His words hung in the air, drawing sharp glances from the other guests. Poirot, standing near the hearth, observed the room's sudden shift. Sir Reginald's cuff-linked tugging intensified. Mr. Carver's smile faltered. The poetess, Mrs. Langley, clutched her shawl as if chilled. "Mon Dieu," Poirot thought. "The diary is a spark, and this room is tinder." Then a scream shattered the tension. A maid, entering with a tray of brandy, pointed to the display case. The diary was gone, in the chaos that followed. Guests searching under tables, Lady Evelyn demanding order, Poirot remained still, his mind racing. He noted the library's single entrance, guarded by a footman, and the windows locked tight against the storm. "The diary has not left this room," he declared, his voice cutting through the clamor. "It is among us, hidden by one who knows its value." The guests protested, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of denials. Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. "Mes amis, do not exhaust yourselves with falsehoods. Hercule Poirot will find the truth. But first I must know, why does this diary inspire such fear?" His eyes locked onto Lady Evelyn, who looked away, her hands trembling. As the guests dispersed to their rooms, Poirot lingered in the library, his fingers tracing the display case. A faint scratch on the glass caught his attention, barely visible in the firelight. "Hastings," he murmured. "This mark was made by a ring, a man's ring, perhaps, or a woman's with a heavy stone. The thief was careless, but clever." Hastings frowned. "But who, Poirot?" "Précisément," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "The timing, it is perfect. No? A distraction, a moment of chaos. The thief is not only a guest, but one with motive. The diary holds a secret, Hastings, and secrets. They breed danger." Outside, the storm raged on, thunder rumbling like a warning. Poirot's gaze swept the room, lingering on the portraits, the bookshelves, the shadows that seemed to shift in the corners. He felt the weight of the mystery settling around him, as tangible as the velvet diary itself. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we shall begin to unravel this enigma. But tonight, Hastings, lock your door. The heart of this manor beats with deceit." As they retired to their guest rooms, Poirot's mind churned with questions. What did the diary conceal? A treasure, a scandal, or something darker? Who among the guests had the nerve to steal it under his very nose? And why did Lady Evelyn's eyes betray a fear deeper than the loss of a mere heirloom? The little grey cells hummed, and Hercule Poirot knew that the velvet diary was only the beginning of a case that would test his genius to its limits. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Drawing Room. The morning after the velvet diary's disappearance dawned grey and heavy, the storm's remnants cloaking Ashbourne Manor in a damp mist. Hercule Poirot stood by the drawing-room's tall windows, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes tracing the droplets that slid down the glass like tears. The room, with its velvet drapes and polished mahogany, hummed with the nervous energy of the guests gathered for breakfast. Poirot's little grey cells were already at work, piecing together the mosaic of last night's chaos. Captain Hastings, nursing a cup of tea, leaned toward him. "Poirot, everyone suds on edge. You sat think the diary was made of gold, the way they sapped her acting." "Non, mon ami," Poirot replied softly, his mustache twitching. "It is not the diary's material, but its secrets that make hearts race. Gold is simple. Secrets are dangerous." He turned, his sharp gaze sweeping the room, where the guests sat in uneasy clusters, their conversations stilted. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne presided over the breakfast table, her composure brittle as porcelain. She cut her grapefruit with precise movements, but her eyes darted to the door each time a servant entered. Sir Reginald Ashbourne, her cousin, fidgeted with his cufflinks, his jovial demeanour replaced by a pallor that suggested a sleepless night. Miss Clara Vane, the sharp-tongued heiress, whispered to Dr. Mortimer Hale, whose distracted air seemed less scholarly today and more evasive. Julian Carver, the solicitor, maintained his polished smile, but his fingers drummed a restless rhythm on the tablecloth. The other guests, the retired Colonel Grayson, the poetess Mrs. Langley, and a local squire named Mr. Pembroke, ate in silence, their glances heavy with suspicion. Poirot, ever the observer, noted these details as he sipped his coffee. "Hastings," he murmured. "Observe the hands. They betray what the face conceals. Sir Reginald's cufflinks. They are a nervous tic. Miss Vane's grip on her fork too tight. And Mr. Carver, his smile. It is a mask." Hastings nodded, though his brow furrowed, still catching up to Poirot's rapid deductions. Approaching the table, Poirot addressed the group with his characteristic charm. Mes amis, the loss of the velvet diary is most distressing, n'est-ce pas? But fear not. Hercule Poirot is here to restore order. I would speak with each of you to understand this enigma. His tone was light, but his eyes missed nothing. He began with Lady Evelyn, inviting her to a corner of the drawing-room where a fire crackled softly. "Madame, this diary, it is more than a family relic. Oui, its disappearance troubles you deeply." Lady Evelyn Sept's lips tightened. "It Sept's a sentimental item, Monsieur Poirot. My great-grandmother Sept's writings, nothing more. Its theft is an affront, but I assure you it holds no great value." Poirot tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "And yet, madame, your eyes, they speak of fear. A fear not of loss, but of discovery." She flinched, and Poirot pressed on. "Tell me, was the diary often displayed, or was it hidden until last night?" "It was recently uncovered," she admitted, her voice low. "I meant to have Dr. Hale examine it for historical value." Her hesitation was a crack in her armor, and Poirot noted it, filing it away like a card in his mental index. Next, he spoke with Sir Reginald, whose bluster barely masked his unease. "Dash it all, Poirot. It's just a book. Probably some servant pinched it for a lark." But his hands betrayed him, tugging at his cufflinks until one popped free, rolling under a chair. Poirot retrieved it with a flourish, noting a monogram, etched in silver. "A fine piece, monsieur. You are fond of such trinkets." Sir Reginald muttered something incoherent, his face reddening. Miss Clara Vane proved more forthcoming, her eyes gleaming with defiance. "I saw the diary's pages, Monsieur Poirot. Those symbols weren't just scribbles. They looked like a code. If you ask me, someone here knows what it means and wants it for themselves." Her glance flickered toward Dr. Hale, who was engrossed in a newspaper or pretending to be. Poirot's interest piqued. Clara's boldness suggested either innocence or cunning. Dr. Hale, when questioned, rambled about alchemical symbols and medieval manuscripts, but his hands trembled as he adjusted his spectacles. "The diary could be a scholarly treasure," he said, "but I only glimpsed it briefly." Poirot noted the ink stains on his fingers, fresh, not faded, and wondered what the historian had been writing in the night. Mr. Carver, the solicitor, was all charm, claiming ignorance of the diary's contents, but offering to assist Poirot legally. "A theft in such a house is scandalous," he said, his smile unwavering. Yet Poirot observed the man's eyes, which lingered too long on Lady Evelyn, as if gauging her reaction. As the interviews continued, a footman delivered a folded note to Poirot, slipped under his door at dawn. It read, in a hurried scrawl, "The diary hides the shame of the Ashwoes. Seek the locket." Poirot's pulse quickened. A locket. Could it connect to the scratch on the display case? He pocketed the note, revealing it only to Hastings. "This, mon ami, is a clue or a trap. Either way, it is progress." The morning wore on, and the guests' alibis held firm. Each claimed to have been in plain sight when the diary vanished. Yet Poirot's mind churned. The maid's scream had been timed too perfectly, the chaos too convenient. He recalled the library's layout: one door, locked windows, and a fireplace that cast long shadows. The thief, he told Hastings, did not leave the room. The diary was hidden, perhaps in plain sight, while all eyes were elsewhere. As breakfast ended, Mrs. Langley, the poetess, approached Poirot, her shawl slipping to reveal a bruise on her wrist. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I heard footsteps last night, outside my room. Someone was searching for something." Her voice trembled, and Poirot's eyes softened, though his mind raced. A bruise, a nocturnal prowler, another thread in the tapestry. Returning to the drawing-room Sept's windows, Poirot gazed at the mist-shrouded gardens. "Hastings," he said, "this manor is a stage, and the guests, they play their parts. But one among them has written a secret script, hidden in that velvet diary. We must find it before the curtain falls." The air grew heavier, as if the manor itself held its breath. Poirot's little grey cells hummed, weaving connections between the note, the locket, and the guests' guarded glances. The diary's secret was a spark, and the drawing-room's whispers were kindling. Hercule Poirot knew the fire of truth was near, but first he must navigate the shadows of deception. Chapter 3. The Locked Study. The morning mist clung to Ashbourne Manor like a shroud, softening the edges of its Gothic spires, but doing little to ease the tension within its walls. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand hall, his polished shoes clicking softly on the marble as he surveyed the closed door of Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's private study. The velvet diary's disappearance had set his little grey cells ablaze, and the anonymous note, "The diary hides the shame of the Ashbournes. Seek the locket," pointed to secrets locked away in this very room. Captain Hastings, at his side, adjusted his tie nervously. "Poirot, are you sure Lady Evelyn will let us poke around in her study? It's her sanctum, after all." Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. Mon ami, when Hercule Poirot requests, even the most private doors open. Besides, Lady Evelyn's fear betrays her. She wishes the diary found, but not its secrets exposed. He knocked lightly, and the door creaked open to reveal Lady Evelyn, her silver hair impeccably coiled, but her eyes shadowed with unease. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice steady but strained, "I trust you will be discreet. This room holds personal matters." "Naturellement, madame," Poirot replied, bowing slightly. "Discretion is the companion of truth." His words were polite, but his eyes were already scanning the room, cataloguing every detail with surgical precision. The study was a sanctuary of dark wood and leather, its walls lined with bookshelves and a single portrait of a stern-faced man in Victorian attire, presumably an Ashbourne patriarch. A mahogany desk dominated the center, its surface cluttered with papers, an inkwell, and a silver letter opener. A velvet curtain framed a tall window through which the storm's last clouds drifted. Poirot noted the faint scent of lavender, Lady Evelyn's signature perhaps, and a curious absence of dust suggesting the room was frequently used. He began with the desk, his gloved fingers tracing its edges. "Madame, the diary was last seen in the library, yet I suspect it was brought here before its disappearance. You mentioned it was recently uncovered. From where?" Lady Evelyn hesitated, her hands smoothing her dress. "An old trunk in the attic, found during a spring cleaning. I thought it merely a curiosity until Dr. Hale expressed interest." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And you kept it here in this study before displaying it?" Her nod was reluctant, and Poirot's fingers found a hidden catch beneath the desk's lip. A soft click revealed a shallow compartment containing a faded photograph and a gold locket engraved with the initials E. Error. The photograph showed a young woman, strikingly like Lady Evelyn, beside a man whose face was scratched out. The locket, when opened, held a lock of dark hair and a tiny folded note with a single word: "Betrayed." "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, holding the locket to the light. "This, Hastings, is the locket of our mysterious note. But whose betrayal does it mourn?" He turned to Lady Evelyn, whose face had drained of color. "Madame, this photograph, who is the man?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "My great-uncle, Edward Ashbourne. He vanished long ago. A family tragedy, nothing more." But her trembling hands told another story, and Poirot filed away her reaction for later scrutiny. Before he could press further, a gust of wind rattled the window, drawing his attention. The storm had trapped the guests overnight, and the manor felt like a pressure cooker, its secrets simmering beneath the surface. Poirot moved to the window, noting its sturdy lock and a faint smudge on the sill, a trace of mud, fresh despite the rain. "Someone has been here," he said, more to himself than to Hastings, not inside, but outside, watching. Hastings frowned. Watching? In this weather? But the diary was stolen indoors. Poirot. "Précisément," Poirot replied, his eyes narrowing. "The theft is but one thread. There is a larger tapestry, a watcher in the shadows, perhaps connected to the locket's tale of betrayal." He turned back to the desk, his fingers brushing a stack of papers. Among them was a letter, half buried, addressed to Lady Evelyn in a spidery hand. It read, "The past will not stay buried. Return what was taken." The signature was a single initial, R. Poirot's pulse quickened. "Rise, Sir Reginald. or another player in this game. He slipped the letter into his pocket, deciding to confront its author later. "Hastings," he said, "we must examine the grounds. The mud on the sill suggests an outsider, or someone posing as one." As they prepared to leave the study, a distant crash echoed through the manor, followed by a muffled cry. Lady Evelyn gasped, and Poirot's hand shot up, silencing her. "Remain here, madame. Hastings, with me." They hurried into the hall, where a maid stood trembling, pointing to a shattered vase at the foot of the staircase. "It fell, sir," she stammered. "I saw a shadow, someone running toward the gardens." Poirot's eyes darted to the open front door, where the mist swirled like a living thing. He stepped outside, his coat billowing, and scanned the gravel drive. Footprints, faint but fresh, led toward the garden's edge, where a copse of trees stood shrouded in fog. "The watcher," he murmured. "They grow bold or desperate." Returning to the study, Poirot found Lady Evelyn clutching the photograph, her composure fraying. "Monsieur Poirot, this must end. The diary, it's tied to things best forgotten." Her voice broke, and Poirot's gaze softened, though his mind remained razor-sharp. "Madame, the past is never forgotten, only hidden, and Hercule Poirot will uncover it." He gestured to Hastings, and they left the study, the locked door clicking shut behind them. In the hall, Poirot paused, his mind weaving connections: the locket, the letter, the mud, the shadow. The diary's theft was no simple crime. It was a key to a scandal buried in the Ashbourne lineage, and someone was willing to kill to keep it locked. As they returned to the drawing-room where the guests awaited, Poirot's thoughts turned to the anonymous note: "Seek the locket." He had found it, but its secrets only deepened the mystery. The storm outside might have passed, but within Ashbourne Manor a darker tempest was brewing, and Poirot knew the next clue would bring him closer to its heart. Chapter 4. Shadows of the Past. The air in Ashbourne Manor carried a weight of secrets, as if the walls themselves whispered tales of betrayal. Hercule Poirot sat in the library, the fire casting flickering shadows across the shelves. His fingers steepled as he pondered the clues. The stolen velvet diary, the locket inscribed with E.A., the photograph with its defaced figure, and the cryptic letter warning Lady Evelyn to return what was taken. The morning's discovery in the locked study had ignited his little grey cells, and now, as the storm's last clouds drifted beyond the manor's windows, Poirot sought to unravel the Ashbourne family's past, to illuminate the present mystery. Captain Hastings, perched on a leather armchair, flipped through a dusty volume of local history. "Poirot, this place feels like a museum of ghosts. Do you really think the diary sept's theft is tied to something from decades ago?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice low and precise. "The past is the root of all mysteries. The diary, the locket, the letter, they are threads of a tapestry, woven long before our arrival. We must follow them." He rose, his polished shoes silent on the Persian rug, and approached a portrait above the mantel, a young woman with Lady Evelyn's features, her eyes haunted yet defiant. The plaque read, "Lillian Ashbourne, 1855–1882. Poirot's interviews with the guests had yielded fragments of the Ashbourne lineage, but gaps remained. He requested Lady Evelyn's permission to examine family records, and she reluctantly provided a box of letters and journals, her hands trembling as she handed them over. "These are private, Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice tight. "I trust you'll find what you need without stirring old wounds." "Madam, wounds do not heal when buried," Poirot said gently, though his eyes were sharp. He and Hastings retreated to the library, where the letters revealed a tragic tale. Lillian Ashbourne, Lady Evelyn's great-grandmother, had been the keeper of the velvet diary. Her writings, penned in a delicate hand, spoke of a forbidden love with a man named Edward Langley, a name that echoed Mrs. Langley, the poetess among the guests. Edward, a painter of modest means, had been disowned by the Ashbourne family, who deemed him unworthy of their heiress. One letter, dated 1879, was particularly revealing. Lillian wrote, "Father threatens to disinherit me if I see Edward again. He speaks of a fortune hidden for the family's honor, locked away where none shall find it. The diary holds the key, but I fear its truth will destroy us. A later entry, stained with tears, read, "Edward is gone. They say he fled, but I know he would not abandon me. The locket is all I have left." Poirot's fingers brushed the locket from the study. Its inscription, "E. now clear," as Edward Ashbourne, Lillian's brother who had vanished around the same time. "Hastings," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "This is no mere scandal. The diary's map, its symbols, they point to a fortune hidden by the Ashburns, perhaps stolen or cursed. Edward Langley's disappearance, Edward Ashburn's absence, these are not coincidences." He paused, his mind racing. "And the letter signed Ra, it suggests someone believes the fortune was taken unjustly." Hastings frowned. "But who sells? Sir Reginald." He is nervous enough, tugging those cufflinks like a man with something to hide. "Perhaps," Poirot mused. "But we must not leap to conclusions. The little grey cells, they demand order." He turned to the other guests, summoning them one by one to the library for further questioning, weaving their stories into the tapestry of the past. Mrs. Langley, the poetess, was first. Her shawl slipped as she sat, revealing the bruise Poirot had noted earlier. "Mrs. Langley," he began, his tone disarming. "Your name, it is no coincidence you are connected to Edward Langley, the painter." Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "He was my great-uncle," she admitted. "A family legend, nothing more. He loved Lillian Ashbourne, but they drove him away. I came here to learn the truth, not to steal diaries." Her voice cracked, and Poirot noted the bruise, fresh, not old, suggesting a recent struggle. "The footsteps I heard last night," she added. "They were near my room. Someone's watching us all." "Next," Sir Reginald blustered in, his cufflinks gleaming but his face pale. "This is nonsense, Poirot. Digging up old love stories won't find your diary." Yet when Poirot mentioned the letter signed Ra, Sir Reginald's hand froze mid-tug, his eyes darting to the door. "I know nothing of letters," he snapped, but his denial was too quick, too rehearsed. Miss Clara Vane, ever bold, scoffed at the family's history. "A hidden fortune. Sounds like a fairy tale. But those symbols in the diary, they're real. I've seen similar ones in my travels, linked to old smuggling routes." Her knowledge intrigued Poirot, but her casual dismissal of the fortune raised his suspicions. Was she deflecting, or genuinely ignorant? Dr. Mortimer Hale, the historian, fidgeted with his spectacles when asked about Edward Ashbourne. "A minor figure in the family records," he said. "Disappeared after a quarrel with his father, likely ran off to the colonies." But his ink-stained fingers trembled, and Poirot recalled the fresh stains from the drawing-room. Had Hale been decoding the diary's symbols in secret? As the interviews ended, a maid interrupted, her face ashen. "Monsieur Poirot, there's something in the hall." She led them to a side table where a single glove lay, black leather, stained with mud, identical to the smudge on the study's windowsill. Poirot examined it, noting a faint monogram, J.C. Julian Carver, the solicitor, or another deception. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low. "The past casts long shadows. This glove, the locket, the letter, they point to a crime older than the guests, yet alive in their motives. The diary's fortune is no myth, and someone here seeks it, or fears it." He glanced at the portrait of Lillian, her eyes seeming to plead across the decades. Outside, the mist thickened, and Poirot's thoughts turned to the gardens where footprints had vanished into the trees. The manor was a labyrinth of lies, and the velvet diary its heart. As he and Hastings prepared to investigate further, a chill ran through him, not from the cold, but from the certainty that the watcher in the shadows was closing in, and the Ashbourne fortune was a prize worth killing for. Chapter 5. The Midnight Intruder. The clock in Ashbourne Manor's grand hall struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the darkened corridors like a warning. Hercule Poirot lay awake in his guest room, his mind a whirl of clues: the velvet diary's theft, the locket inscribed with E.A., the cryptic letter signed Ra, and the mud-stained glove marked J.C. The manor's secrets pulsed like a heartbeat, and Poirot's little grey cells refused to rest. He adjusted his silk pajamas and sat up, his ears attuned to the night's silence, when a faint creak broke the stillness, footsteps, stealthy and deliberate, in the hall beyond his door. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, slipping on his dressing gown and patent leather shoes, which gleamed even in the moonlight. He opened his door a fraction, peering into the shadowed corridor. A figure moved swiftly toward the library, cloaked in darkness, their silhouette blurred by the storm's lingering mist outside the windows. Poirot's pulse quickened. "The intruder grows bold," he murmured, stepping silently into the hall, his cane in hand, not for support, but as a precaution. The library door was ajar, a sliver of firelight spilling onto the floor. Poirot approached, his movements as precise as a cat's. Inside, the figure hovered near the bookshelves, their hands rifling through volumes with practiced urgency. A book fell, its thud muffled by the rug, and the figure froze. Poirot, hidden in the doorway's shadow, noted the glint of a ring on their hand, a heavy stone, perhaps the one that scratched the diary's display case. Before he could act, the figure slipped through a side door, vanishing into the manor's maze of passages. Poirot entered the library, his eyes scanning the shelves. The fallen book, a worn copy of the history of Ashbourne, lay open to a page about smuggling routes along the coast, a detail Miss Clara Vane had mentioned. He tucked the book under his arm, intending to study it later, and examined the shelves. A faint outline in the dust suggested a panel had been disturbed, but it refused to yield to his probing fingers. A secret, perhaps, he mused, but not tonight's prize. The next morning, the manor buzzed with unease. The guests gathered in the dining room, their faces pale as a footman announced a new outrage. A painting in the gallery, a portrait of Lillian Ashbourne, had been slashed, its canvas torn to ribbons. Beside it, pinned to the wall with a letter opener, was a single page, ripped from the velvet diary. Its ink was faded, but legible, filled with cryptic symbols, and a sketch of a maze, annotated with the words, "The heart holds the truth." Poirot, summoned to the scene, studied the destruction with a calm that belied his racing mind. The painting's wounds were deliberate, the cuts precise, as if targeting Lillian's face. The diary page, brittle with age, bore a faint watermark, an Ashbourne crest, matching the diary's cover. "This is no act of vandalism," Poirot declared, his voice cutting through the guests' murmurs. "It is a message, a challenge to Hercule Poirot." Captain Hastings, at his side, frowned. "But why leave the page? If the thief has the diary, why reveal it now?" "Précisément, mon ami," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "The thief wishes to control the narrative. This page is a taunt or a diversion, but it tells us something vital. The maze. It is not merely a drawing, but a map to the fortune Lillian hid." He turned to Lady Evelyn, who stood trembling, her eyes fixed on the ruined painting. "Madame, this maze, where is it?" Her voice was barely audible. "In the gardens, overgrown and forgotten. No one goes there. It's unsafe." Her hesitation, coupled with the fear in her eyes, confirmed Poirot's suspicions. The maze was key to the diary's secrets. He gathered the guests in the drawing-room, the torn page in hand. "Mes amis," he began, his tone commanding. "Last night, an intruder searched the library. This morning, a painting is destroyed, and a page from the stolen diary appears. Someone among us plays a dangerous game. I ask you, who was abroad in the night?" Denials erupted, each guest claiming to have been in their room. Sir Reginald's cufflinks clinked nervously. Miss Clara Vane's eyes darted to Dr. Hale, who clutched his spectacles. Mr. Julian Carver's smile faltered, his fingers brushing a ring that matched Poirot's memory of the intruders. Mrs. Langley, the poetess, clutched her shawl, the bruise on her wrist now joined by a fresh scratch. Colonel Grayson, the retired soldier, scoffed. "This is madness. You're accusing us all, Poirot." "Not all, monsieur," Poirot said smoothly. "Only one, but the truth, it hides in plain sight." He held up the diary page, its symbols glowing in the morning light. "These markings, they resemble those described by Dr. Hale, Alchemical, perhaps, or a code for smugglers. Miss Vane, you spoke of such rotes. Care to elaborate? Clara's cheeks flushed, but her voice was steady. I've travelled the coast, seen old maps. Those symbols mark hidden paths, used by smugglers a century ago. The Ashwers were rumoured to profit from such trade. Her words drew gasps, and Lady Evelyn's face hardened, but Poirot noted Dr. Hale's sudden stillness. The historian knew more than he admitted. As the guests dispersed, Poirot confided in Hastings. The maze in the gardens. It is our next step. The diary's map points there, and the intruder's search suggests they know it. But this page, why leave it? To mislead us, or because they could not decode it? He examined the symbols, his mind tracing their curves. One resembled a crescent moon, another a crossed key, clues to a lock perhaps, or a location. Outside, the mist had lifted, revealing the garden's wild beauty. Poirot's gaze lingered on the distant maze, its hedges tangled and foreboding. Hastings, he said, we must tread carefully. The intruder is no mere thief, but a hunter, driven by greed or vengeance. The diary's fortune is near, and with it, danger. As they prepared to explore the maze, a chill wind carried a faint sound, a rustle, like footsteps retreating into the trees. Poirot's hand tightened on his cane. The midnight intruder was still watching, and the slashed painting was a warning. The Velvet Diary's secrets were unraveling, but each thread pulled them closer to a truth that someone would kill to keep buried. Chapter 6. The Garden Sept's Secret. The Ashbourne Gardens sprawled beyond the manor like a forgotten kingdom, their once manicured hedges now wild and tangled under the grey noon sky. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat buttoned against the damp chill, stood at the garden's edge, his sharp green eyes fixed on the overgrown maze sketched on the torn diary page. The symbols, a crescent moon, a crossed key, hinted at a hidden truth, and the maze, Lady Evelyn had admitted, was its likely heart. The midnight intruder, the slashed painting, and the mud-stained glove marked J.C. swirled in Poirot's mind, each clue a thread in the tapestry of the Velvet Diary's mystery. Captain Hastings, trudging beside him, adjusted his scarf. Poirot, this maze looks like a jungle. Are you sure the diary sells map points here? It could be a wild goose chase. Non, mon ami, Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with determination. The maze is no mere garden feature. It is a vault of secrets, and the diary's map, it guides us to its core. He clutched the torn page, its cryptic symbols glowing in his memory. The intruder searched the library last night, seeking something. They know the maze holds answers. They followed a gravel path, its stones crunching underfoot until the maze's entrance loomed, a dark arch of yew, its branches knotted like gnarled fingers. Poirot paused, noting fresh footprints in the mud, their edges blurred by the morning's mist. Someone has been here recently, he murmured, kneeling to examine the tracks. A man's boot, heavy, with a worn heel. Not a guest's fine shoes, but perhaps a servant's or an outsider's. The maze's paths twisted inward, its high hedges muffling the world beyond. Poirot's cane tapped rhythmically as he navigated, his mind mapping each turn against the diary's sketch. At the maze's heart they found a stone gazebo, its iron gate locked with a rusted padlock. The structure was weathered, ivy crawling up its pillars, but Poirot's eyes caught signs of recent disturbance, crushed grass, a cigarette stub, and a broken pocket watch, its face cracked at 3 o'clock. Mon Dieu, Poirot said, picking up the watch with a handkerchief. This is no relic. The break is fresh, and the time 3 o'clock perhaps when the intruder fled last night. He examined the cigarette stub, its brand unfamiliar, and pocketed both items. Hastings, the maze is a meeting place, a hiding place. Someone comes here, but why? As they circled the gazebo, a rustle in the hedges made Hastings jump. A man emerged, gaunt, weathered, with dirt-streaked hands and a guarded expression. His coat bore the Ashbourne crest, marking him as the groundskeeper. "What are you doing here?" he growled, his eyes darting to the gazebo. "This place ain't safe." Poirot sipped. His smile was disarming, but his gaze was steel. "Monsieur, I am Hercule Poirot, and I seek the truth. You are the groundskeeper, oui? You know this maze well. Tell me, who else visits its heart?" The man, who introduced himself as Tom Rudd, shifted uneasily. "No one comes here. Too overgrown. I check it now and then. That's all." But his hands betrayed him, clenching into fists, and Poirot noted a faint scar across his knuckles, a mark of a fighter or a thief. "And this watch?" Poirot held it up, watching Rudd's face. "It was dropped here recently. Yours, perhaps?" Rudd's eyes widened, but he shook his head, muttering about trespassers. Poirot pressed on. "The diary, monsieur. It speaks of a maze, a hidden truth. You have served the Ashworths long. None? What secrets do you guard?" Rudd's jaw tightened. "I guard nothing but the grounds. The Ashworths have their secrets, but they don't share 'em with the likes of me." He turned to leave, but Poirot's voice stopped him. "One moment, monsieur. The cigarette stub, uncommon, not sold locally. You smoke such a brand?" "Rudd sells." Silence was answer enough, and Poirot filed away the groundskeeper Sip's evasiveness. "Very well, we shall speak again." As Rudd disappeared into the maze, Hastings whispered, "He's sans hiding something, Poirot. That watch, the cigarette, could he be the intruder?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, "but the maze holds more than one secret. We must open this gazebo." He examined the padlock, its rust superficial, suggesting recent use. With a hairpin from his pocket, a trick learned from less reputable cases, Poirot picked the lock, the gate creaking open to reveal a stone bench and a small carved box half buried in the dirt. Inside were faded papers, their edges charred, bearing the same crescent moon symbol as the diary page. Before Poirot could read them, a sharp crack split the air, and a stone struck the gazebo's pillar, inches from his head. Hastings yanked him down, shouting, "Poirot, get down!" Another stone flew, shattering against the bench. Poirot's eyes scanned the hedges, catching a fleeting shadow retreating through the maze. "Mon ami, we are not alone," Poirot said, his voice calm but urgent. He clutched the papers, pulling Hastings toward the maze-sept's exit. "The attacker knows we are close. These papers, they are another piece of the diary sept's puzzle." Back at the manor, Poirot spread the papers on a library table. They were fragments of a letter, written in Lillian Ashbourne's hand. "The fortune is safe, hidden where the moon crosses the quay. Edward, forgive me. I had no choice." The words confirmed Poirot's theory. The maze concealed a fortune tied to Edward Langley's disappearance and Edward Ashbourne's betrayal. "Hastings," Poirot said, "the groundskeeper Rudd knows more than he admits. His scar, his cigarette. They link him to this place. But the attack? Why now? The thief fears we approach the truth." He glanced at the torn diary page, its maze sketch aligning with the gazebo's location. The moon and quay, they are not symbols, but directions. We must return, but with caution. As they prepared to inform Lady Evelyn, a maid reported another disturbance. A window in the study had been forced open, its latch broken. Poirot's mind raced. The intruder was growing desperate, their actions reckless. The glove, the watch, the papers, all pointed to a conspiracy rooted in the Ashbourne past, and the maze was its epicenter. Poirot's little grey cells hummed, sensing the net tightening around the culprit, but the attack in the maze warned that the next move could be deadly. Chapter 7. A Dance of Deceptions. The chandeliers of Ashbourne Manor's ballroom glittered like stars, casting a golden glow over the polished floor where guests swirled in a waltz, their finery a stark contrast to the storm of secrets brewing beneath the surface. Hercule Poirot, impeccable in his black tie, stood near a marble pillar, his sharp green eyes scanning the dancers. The grand ball, insisted upon by Lady Evelyn to maintain appearances despite the Velvet Diary's theft, was a stage for deception, and Poirot intended to direct its drama. The clues, the locket inscribed E.A., the letter signed R, the mud-stained glove marked J.C., the torn diary page, and the charred papers from the maze, danced in his mind, each a step toward the truth. Captain Hastings, adjusting his cufflinks, joined him. Poirot, this seems like madness. A ball now, with a thief among us and an attacker in the maze. Précisément, mon ami, Poirot replied, his moustache twitching. In chaos, the guilty reveal themselves. Tonight we observe the glances, the whispers, the steps that falter. The diary's secret is a melody, and this dance will play its tune. He sipped a glass of champagne, his gaze fixed on the guests. Lady Evelyn, resplendent in emerald silk, moved among the crowd, her smile a fragile mask. Sir Reginald Ashbourne, her cousin, danced stiffly, his cufflinks glinting as he tugged them nervously. Miss Clara Vane, in a crimson gown, twirled with Dr. Mortimer Hale, whose spectacles slipped as he whispered urgently to her. Mr. Julian Carver, the solicitor, partnered with Mrs. Langley, the poetess, whose shawl concealed her bruised wrist but not her wary eyes. Colonel Grayson and Mr. Pembroke, the squire, lingered near the punch-bowl, their conversation low and tense. Poirot's tension was drawn to a small detail. Clara Vane's Stet's dance card, tucked into her glove, bore a series of marks, dots and dashes, like Morse code. He approached her as the music paused, his charm disarming. "Mademoiselle Vane, your card. It is most intriguing. May I see it?" Clara's eyes flickered with defiance, but she handed it over. "Just a doodle, Monsieur Poirot. Keeps me amused." The card read. The symbols matched the diary's cryptic page, suggesting a message. The key is the moon. Was Clara decoding the diary, or planting a false trail? He returned the card, his smile concealing his suspicions. "A clever amusement, mademoiselle. But beware, codes can betray as well as reveal." Clara's laugh was sharp, but her glance toward Dr. Hale was too quick, too telling. Poirot moved to the edge of the ballroom, where a servant offered him a tray of canapés. As he declined, he noticed a faint monogram on the servant's cuff. J.C. matching the glove from the gallery. "Monsieur Carver," Poirot called, beckoning the solicitor. "Your initials. They are prominent tonight. A glove, a cuff. Do you misplace such items often?" Carver's smile tightened. "A coincidence, Monsieur Poirot. Many share my initials." But his hand brushed a heavy ring, and Poirot recalled the library intruder's glint. Was Carver the midnight prowler, or was the glove a misdirection? As the waltz resumed, Poirot orchestrated his trap. He approached Lady Evelyn, suggesting a game to lighten the mood. Each guest would share an anecdote, seemingly trivial, about their connection to the Ashworths. "A harmless diversion," he said, but his eyes gleamed with intent. The guests agreed, their stories revealing more than they intended. Sir Reginald spoke of childhood summers at the manor, his voice faltering when mentioning Edward Ashbourne's disappearance. Mrs. Langley recounted her great-uncle Edward Langley's love for Lillian, her eyes misting but her bruise starkly visible. Hale rambled about historical research, avoiding the diary's symbols. Clara Vane claimed distant ties to smugglers, her boldness masking something deeper. Colonel Grayson and Mr. Pembroke offered bland tales, but Carver's story, a legal dispute over Ashbourne lands, held a curious detail. He mentioned a lost deed, tied to a moonlit vault. Poirot's trap snapped shut with Mrs. Langley. "Madame," he said, his voice soft but piercing, "your great-uncle Edward Langley, he did not flee, did he? You wear his locket, non?" He gestured to her shawl, where a gold chain peeked out, inscribed with E.A. Not Edward Ashbourne, but Edward Langley, repurposed by Lillian. The room stilled. Mrs. Langley's face crumpled. "How did you know?" she whispered. I am not Mrs. Langley. I am Ellen Langley, Edward's granddaughter, come to reclaim what was stolen from him." Gasps rippled through the guests. Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat, and Sir Reginald's cufflink snapped off, rolling across the floor. "Mon Dieu," Poirot said, his voice commanding. "The locket, the diary, they are tied to a theft, a betrayal. Ellen Langley, you seek justice. But do you also seek the diary?" Ellen shook her head, tears falling. "I only wanted the truth. Someone else took it. I swear it." Poirot's eyes swept the room, noting Carver's clenched jaw, Clara's sudden stillness, and Hale's averted gaze. "The truth, it emerges," he said. "But the thief remains hidden. The dance of deceptions continues." He pocketed the broken cufflink, its monogram, ERO, another clue linking Sir Reginald to the letter signed R. As the ball ended, Poirot confided in Hastings. "Ellen Langley's revelation is a crack in the facade, but the diary's thief is still among us. The code key, Moon, points to the maze's gaze bow, where the moon's light may reveal a lock. We must return there, but with care. The attacker from the maze watches still." Outside, the night was clear, the moon casting silver across the gardens. Poirot's mind churned. Ellen's true identity, Carver's ring, Clara's code, Hale's evasions. The Velvet Diary's fortune was closer, but so was danger. As he and Hastings retired, a faint creak echoed from the hall, a reminder that the manor's shadows held eyes, and the next step in the dance could be deadly. Chapter 8. The Forgotten Heir. The morning light filtered through Ashbourne Manor's stained-glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across the grand hall, but the warmth did little to dispel the chill of suspicion that gripped its inhabitants. Hercule Poirot stood by a towering bookcase, his gloved fingers tracing the spine of a family chronicle, his mind a whirl of clues. The stolen velvet diary, the locket inscribed EA, the letter signed R, the mud-stained glove marked JC, the torn diary page with its maze sketch, the charred papers from the gazebo, and Ellen Langley's revelation as Edward Langley's granddaughter. Each thread wove a tapestry of betrayal, and Poirot's little grey cells were determined to unravel it. Captain Hastings, pacing nearby, rubbed his temples. "Poirot, this case is a labyrinth. Ellen Langley Sip's not who she claimed, and now we sat hunting a hidden fortune tied to a century-old scandal. Where do we even start?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with a faint smile. "We start with the heart of the matter, the Ashbourne heir, the diary, the locket. They speak of Edward Langley, but also Edward Ashbourne, the brother who vanished. I suspect he did not die, but lives still, or his legacy does." He opened the chronicle, its pages yellowed but intact, and found a passage about Edward Ashbourne's disappearance in 1879, after a quarrel with his father over Lillian's forbidden love. Poirot summoned Lady Evelyn to the library, where the air was thick with the scent of old leather and secrets. Her emerald eyes were shadowed, her composure fraying like a worn tapestry. "Madame," Poirot began, his voice gentle but firm, "the diary's theft, the locket, the maze, they point to a truth you fear. Edward Ashbourne, your great-uncle, was he truly lost, or did he survive, hidden from the family?" Lady Evelyn's hand trembled, clutching a lace handkerchief. "Monsieur Poirot, you dig too deep. Edward was disgraced, cast out. He died abroad, or so we were told. Why torment me with ghosts?" Her voice cracked, and Poirot's eyes narrowed, catching the flicker of dread in her gaze. "Madame," the locket inscribed EA. It was his, oui, and the letter signed R. "It demands the return of what was taken. Was it Edward's inheritance stolen by the family?" Poirot's tone was relentless, his words probing like a surgeon's scalpel. Lady Evelyn's face paled, and she sank into a chair. "You don't understand," she whispered. "The Ashbourne fortune was built on sacrifice. Edward, he was betrayed. Yes, but not by me. My grandfather ensured he was erased, his name struck from the will. The diary holds proof, a map to what he hid before he vanished. Her admission hung in the air, a confession of a family's shame." Poirot's mind raced. "And this fortune, it is what the thief seeks, or do they seek to expose the betrayal?" Before she could answer, a sharp crack echoed from the hall, followed by a scream. Poirot's and Hastings rushed out, finding a chandelier shattered on the marble floor, its crystals scattered like broken stars. A maid, trembling, pointed upward. "It fell, sir. I was cleaning, and it just dropped." Poirot's eyes darted to the ceiling, where the chandelier's chain hung, its links deliberately cut. "This is no accident," he murmured, his voice low. Someone wishes to silence our inquiries. He examined the debris, noting a scrap of fabric caught in the wreckage, black silk monogrammed J.C., another link to Julian Carver, or a clever plant. Hastings, shaken, whispered, "Poirot that could Seve killed someone." The thief Sebs, getting desperate. "Precisement," Poirot replied, pocketing the fabric. "The forgotten heir, the fortune, they are close, and the culprit fears exposure." He returned to Lady Evelyn, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with terror. "Madame, you must tell me who else knows of Edward Sert's fate." She hesitated, then spoke softly. "Only rumors. Some say he lived, hiding in a coastal village, plotting to reclaim what was his. Others say he died, cursed by the fortune he hid. The diary, it was his, written with Lillian to protect their secret." Her words confirmed Poirot's suspicions. Edward Ashbourne, the forgotten heir, was the key to the diary's map. Poirot gathered the guests in the drawing-room, their faces a gallery of unease. Sir Reginald tugged his cufflinks, his eyes avoiding Poirot's. Clara Vaughan's bold demeanour faltered, her fingers twisting her dance card. Dr. Hale's spectacles slipped as he muttered about historical inaccuracies. Julian Carver's smile was strained, his ring glinting as he adjusted his tie. Ellen Langley, now revealed as Edward's granddaughter, clutched her locket, her bruise stark against her pale skin. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice commanding. "The diary's theft is no simple crime. It hides the legacy of Edward Ashbourne, a man betrayed by his family. Someone here knows his fate, or seeks his fortune." He held up the diary page, its maze and symbols, a silent accusation. The maze, the moon, the key, they lead to a truth worth killing for. Who among you knows more? Silence fell, broken only by Sir Reginald's nervous cough. "This is absurd, Poirot. Edward's long dead. You're chasing fairy tales." But his trembling hands betrayed him, and Poirot noted the cufflink missing from his sleeve, the twin to the one from the ball. Clara Vane spoke up, her voice sharp. "If there's a fortune, it's likely in the maze, as the map suggests. But I'm no thief. I only want answers." Her glance at Dr. Hale was too pointed, and Poirot caught Hale's flinch, his ink-stained fingers twitching. As the guests dispersed, Poirot confided in Hastings. "The chandelier was a warning, mon ami, but it reveals the culprit's fear. The fabric, the glove, they point to Carver, but too neatly. The true thief hides behind misdirection. Edward Ashbourne's legacy lives, perhaps in Ellen, perhaps in another. We must search the maze again under moonlight for the key." Outside, the day darkened, clouds gathering like conspirators. Poirot's thoughts churned. Ellen's locket, Carver's ring, Sir Reginald's cufflinks, Hale's evasions. The forgotten heir's shadow loomed over the manor, and the near-fatal chandelier crash warned that the thief would stop at nothing to keep the diary's secrets buried. Poirot's little grey cells hummed, sensing the truth was near, but the next step could be his last. Chapter 9. The Cipher Sect's Key. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Ashbourne Manor's grounds, but within the library the air was heavy with the weight of secrets. Hercule Poirot sat at a polished oak table, the torn page from the velvet diary spread before him, its cryptic symbols, a crescent moon, a crossed key, and a series of dots and dashes, gleaming like a challenge. The clues accumulated, the locket inscribed E.A., the letter signed R, the glove marked J.C., the charred papers from the maze, Ellen Langley's true identity, and the near-fatal chandelier crash, wove a complex tapestry, and Poirot's little grey cells were alight with the task of decoding it. Captain Hastings, peering over his shoulder, frowned. "Poirot, these symbols are gibberish. How can you make sense of them, and why risk the chapel when the maze nearly got us killed?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his moustache twitching with focus. "The symbols are not gibberish, but a cipher, a key to the diary's heart. The maze points us outward to a place where the moon and key converge. The chapel, mentioned in Lillian's letters, is our next stage." He traced the dots and dashes, recalling Clara Vane's dance card, HL, Key, moon. This code. It is Morse, but layered with meaning. The coordinates here, they mark a location beyond the manor. After hours of meticulous work, Poirot deciphered a portion of the page. The dots and dashes resolved into numbers 51.403, minus 2.189. Coordinates Hastings, he said, his eyes gleaming. A place not far, perhaps a mile from the manor. The chapel, abandoned since the Ashburst scandal, lies there. We must go, under the moon's light, as the cipher suggests. Hastings hesitated, glancing at the darkening sky. At night, after that attack in the maze, Poirot, this feels like a trap. Perhaps, Poirot said, his voice steady, but traps reveal as much as they conceal. The thief grows reckless. The chandelier, the torn page. We are close, mon ami. He donned his overcoat, his cane a silent ally, and they set out, the manor's silhouette fading behind them as they followed a winding path toward the coordinates. The abandoned chapel stood in a clearing, its stone walls crumbling under ivy, its spire leaning like a weary sentinel. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Poirot's flashlight swept the ground, revealing signs of recent activity, shovels' marks, disturbed soil, and a cigarette stub matching the one from the maze. Someone has been digging, he murmured, kneeling to examine the earth. The fortune, perhaps, or a clue to it. Inside, the chapel was a husk of its former glory, its pews rotted and its altar draped in cobwebs. Poirot's light caught a carved symbol on the floor, a crescent moon crossed by a key, identical to the diary's sketch. Mon Dieu, he whispered. The cipher's key is literal. A marker. He pressed the carving, and a faint click echoed, revealing a loose stone. Beneath it lay a small iron box, its lid engraved with the Ashbourne crest. Inside were fragments of a map, mirroring the diary's maze, but extending to the chapel, with a note: the vault lies beneath, where the moon shines. Before Poirot could study further, a shadow moved at the chapel's entrance. A man stepped forward, his face weathered, his eyes hard, a villager, not a guest, but his coat bore a familiar crest. "You've no business here," he growled, gripping a shovel. "The Ashworth's secrets ain't for outsiders." Poirot's calm was unshaken. "Monsieur, I am Hercule Poirot, and I seek only the truth. You know of the diary, oui, and the fortune it hides." The man's eyes flickered, his knuckles whitening on the shovel. "You're Tom Rudd's kin, perhaps. The groundskeeper spoke of trespassers, but you are no stranger to this place." The man introducing himself as Amos Rudd, Tom's brother, scoffed. "The Ashworths owe us. My family worked their lands for generations, and what did we get? Nothing but lies. That diary's trouble, and you're stirring it up." His voice held a bitter edge, and Poirot noted the cigarette pack in his pocket, matching the stubs. "Amos," Poirot said, his tone disarming. "You dig here, seeking what was taken. The fortune, perhaps, or justice for Edward Langley." Amos flinched, his shovel lowering slightly. "I know nothing of fortunes," he muttered, "but the Ashbournes ruined us. Stay away from the chapel, or you'll regret it." As Amos retreated into the dusk, Hastings exhaled. "Poirot, Hecep's involved, isn't? Septi, those cigarette stubs, the digging, Hecep's after the same thing as the thief." "Perhaps," Poirot replied, pocketing the map fragments. "But Amos is a pawn, not the king. The thief within the manor pulls the strings, using the Rudder's grudge. The vault beneath. This chapel holds it, but we need the diary's final pages to find it." He glanced at the moon, now rising, its light filtering through the chapel's broken windows. The cipher speaks of moonlight. "We return tomorrow, when the manor sleeps." Dole, back at the manor, Poirot shared their findings with Lady Evelyn, whose face paled at the mention of the chapel. "That place is cursed," she whispered. "My grandfather forbade us to go there. Edward, he was last seen near it." Her fear confirmed Poirot's theory. The chapel was the diary's endgame. As they retired, Poirot's mind churned. Amos Rudd's anger, the chapel's map, the moonlit vault, all pointed to a fortune tied to Edward Ashbourne's betrayal. But the thief's identity remained elusive. Was it Carver, with his monogrammed glove? Sir Reginald, with his missing cufflink? Or Clara, with her coded dance card? The cipher's key had unlocked a path, but the manor's shadows held a killer, and Poirot knew the next clue could be his last. Chapter 10. Betrayal in the Blood. The late afternoon sun cast a golden haze over Ashbourne Manor, but within its walls the atmosphere was taut with suspicion. Hercule Poirot sat in the library, his gloved fingers tracing the edges of the torn diary page, its cryptic symbols, a crescent moon, a crossed key, now joined by the map fragments from the chapel. The clues, the locket inscribed EA, the letter signed R, the glove marked JC, the charred papers from the maze, Ellen Langley's true identity, the near-fatal chandelier crash, and Amos Rudd's confrontation, wove a tapestry of betrayal, and Poirot's little grey cells were ablaze with the need to unravel it. Captain Hastings, pacing by the fireplace, ran a hand through his hair. Poirot, this case is a tangle, a hidden fortune, a forgotten heir, a chapel vault. And now we've got villagers digging up the past. How does it all connect to the diary sep's thief? Mon aime, Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with focus. The connection lies in the blood, the Ashbourne blood. The diary hides a betrayal, not just of Edward Langley, but of Edward Ashbourne, the heir erased from the family. We must find the will that sealed his fate. He turned to the family chronicle, its pages heavy with secrets, and noted a reference to a solicitor's office in the nearby village where Ashbourne records were kept. Poirot requested Lady Evelyn's permission to search her late grandfather's papers, stored in a locked cabinet in the study. Her reluctance was palpable. Her emerald eyes clouded with dread, but she agreed, handing over a brass key with trembling fingers. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low, "you'll find only pain in those papers. The past is best left buried." "Madame," Poirot said gently, "the past is a wound that festers until opened." He and Hastings entered the study, where the cabinet yielded a trove of documents. Among them was a will, dated 1879, signed by Lord Henry Ashbourne, Lillian's father. It disinherited Edward Ashbourne, redirecting the family fortune to a distant cousin, Sir Reginald's ancestor. A handwritten note in Lillian's script was tucked inside. "Father's cruelty broke us. Edward's share was hidden, where the moon crosses the quay." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon Dieu, Hastings, this is the motive. The diary's map leads to Edward's hidden share, a fortune stolen by betrayal. The thief seeks it, or fears its exposure." He examined the map fragments from the chapel, noting a smudge on one, a deliberate alteration, as if someone had tried to obscure a coordinate. "The map has been tampered with," he said, his voice sharp. "The thief is among us, altering clues to mislead." Before they could delve further, a heated argument erupted in the drawing-room. Poirot and Hastings hurried to find Sir Reginald and Ellen Langley locked in a fierce exchange, the other guests watching in tense silence. "You're a fraud," Sir Reginald shouted, his face flushed, his cufflink missing again. "You come here, pretending to be a poetess, when you're after the Ashbourne fortune." Ellen's eyes blazed, her locket clutched tightly. "I want justice, not gold. Your family ruined mine, Reginald. Edward Langley was driven to ruin, and Edward Ashbourne was erased. The diary proves it." Her voice broke, and she turned to Poirot, her composure crumbling. "Monsieur Poirot, I confess, I searched the library that first night. I thought the diary was there, but I didn't steal it. I swear it." The room stilled, the guests' eyes darting between Ellen and Poirot. Clara Vane's lips curled in a skeptical smirk, while Dr. Hale adjusted his spectacles nervously. Julian Carver's smile was gone, his hand brushing his ring. Lady Evelyn stood frozen, her handkerchief twisted into knots. Poirot's voice cut through the silence. "Mademoiselle Langley, your confession is noted, but it is incomplete. You searched. But the diary was taken during the maid's scream, a moment of chaos. You were in sight. None. This confession, It is a diversion, to protect another or to obscure the truth. His eyes swept the room, noting Sir Reginald's sudden pallor and Carver's clenched jaw. Hastings whispered, "Poirot, is she lying, or is someone using her?" "Both, perhaps," Poirot murmured. "Her confession is too convenient timed to shift suspicion. The true thief tampered with the map, knowing we are close to the vault." He addressed the guests, holding up the altered fragment. "This map was changed to lead us astray. Who among you has such skill? Dr. Hale, your ink-stained fingers suggest a talent for forgery. Monsieur Carver, your legal mind knows how to obscure truth." Hale sputtered. "I'm a historian, not a forger," but his trembling hands betrayed him. Carver's laugh was forced. "You accuse me based on a smudge. This is grasping, Poirot." Yet his ring glinted, matching the intruders from the library. As the argument subsided, Poirot confided in Hastings. "Ellen's confession is a smokescreen, mon ami, but it reveals a truth. The thief fears the will's exposure. The fortune hidden by Edward Ashbourne threatens the Ashbourne legacy, Sir Reginald's most of all." He glanced at the Chronicle, noting a final detail. Edward Ashbourne's last known letter, sent from a coastal village, hinted at a child, a secret heir who might still live. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting the manor in shadow. Poirot's thoughts churned. The tampered map, Ellen's confession, Sir Reginald's missing cufflink, Carver's ring. The will confirmed a betrayal in the blood, but the thief's identity remained elusive. As he and Hastings planned to revisit the chapel under moonlight, a faint creak from the hall signaled the watcher's return. The Velvet Diary's secrets were unraveling, but the next step could lead to a trap, or the truth. Chapter 11. The Vault Beneath. The moon hung low over the English countryside, its silver light casting eerie shadows across the path to the abandoned chapel. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat buttoned against the night's chill, led the way, his cane tapping softly on the uneven ground. The clues, the stolen velvet diary, the locket inscribed EA, the letter signed Roe, the glove marked JC, the torn diary page, the charred papers from the maze, Ellen Langley's true identity, the tampered map, and the near-fatal chandelier crash had converged on this moment. The chapel, marked by the diary's cipher, held the vault where Edward Ashbourne's hidden fortune lay, and Poirot's little grey cells were ablaze with anticipation. Captain Hastings, clutching a flashlight, glanced nervously at the dark trees. "Poirot, this feels like walking into a lion sept's den. That attack in the maze, the chandelier. Someone sept's desperate to stop us. Are you sure about this?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with resolve. "Danger is the shadow of truth. The vault beneath the chapel is the diary's endgame, and the thief knows we are close. We must proceed, but with caution." He held the map fragments from the chapel, their coordinates aligning with the moonlit symbol, a crescent moon crossed by a key etched in the chapel floor. They reached the chapel, its crumbling walls looming like a forgotten tomb. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and decay. Poirot's flashlight swept the interior, settling on the carved symbol he had found before. "The vault lies beneath," he murmured, kneeling to inspect the stone. Its edges were worn but intact, and a faint seam suggested a hidden mechanism. He pressed the crossed key, and a low grinding sound echoed as the stone slid aside, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Hastings hesitated. "Poirot, this looks like a trap. What if the thief rigged it?" "Precisement," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "A trap reveals the hunter. Stay close, mon ami." He descended, his cane testing each step. The air grew colder, the walls slick with moisture. At the bottom, a heavy iron door stood, its surface engraved with the Ashbourne crest and a lock shaped like a crescent moon. Poirot's pulse quickened. "The cipher's key," he whispered, recalling the diary's note. "The vault lies beneath where the moon shines." He examined the lock, noting scratches, recent, as if someone had tried to force it. "The thief has been here," he said, producing a hairpin from his pocket, a tool from his less conventional cases. With deft movements, He picked the lock, but as the door creaked open, a faint click sounded, and a gust of air hissed from the walls. Poirot shoved Hastings back, shouting, "Down!" A barrage of darts shot from hidden slits, embedding in the opposite wall with a sickening thud. Hastings, sprawled on the ground, gasped. "Good Lord, Poirot! That was meant to kill us." "Oui," Poirot said, his voice calm but steely. The thief protects their prize with deadly intent. He inspected the darts, their tips glistening with a faint residue, poison perhaps. We proceed, but with utmost care. The vault was a small chamber, its walls lined with stone shelves. On them rested artifacts, gold coins, jeweled goblets, and a locked chest bearing the Ashbourne crest. Poirot's flashlight caught a chilling detail, a blood-stained glove, identical to the one marked J.C., lying near the chest. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, lifting it with his handkerchief. The thief was here, but wounded, perhaps. This blood, it is fresh. Hastings frowned. Another glove? Carver again, or is someone framing him? Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The glove is too convenient, mon ami. A misdirection like the tampered map. The thief wants us to chase shadows." He examined the chest, its lock unyielding, but a faint inscription caught his eye. "E.A. 1879. Edward Ashbourne's work," he said. "The fortune is here, but the diary's final pages hold the key to this chest." As they searched for more clues, a faint scrape echoed from the staircase. Poirot's hand tightened on his cane, and he signaled Hastings to dim the flashlight. A shadow moved above, then retreated, the sound of footsteps fading into the night. "The watcher," Poirot whispered. "They know we found the vault." They ascended carefully, the poisoned darts, a grim reminder of the stakes. Back in the chapel, Poirot examined the disturbed soil outside, noting fresh shovel marks. "Someone digs, but not for treasure. They seek to hide evidence," he said. He pocketed a shard of glass nearby, its edge stained with the same residue as the darts. A vial, perhaps, broken in haste. The thief is careless under pressure. Returning to the manor, Poirot confronted Lady Evelyn in the drawing-room where the guests were gathered, their faces tense. "Madame," he said, holding up the blood-stained glove, "this was found in a vault beneath the chapel, rigged with a trap to kill. The fortune is real, hidden by Edward Ashbourne, but someone here seeks it or fears it." He watched the guests. Sir Reginald's cufflink tugged nervously, Clara Vane's eyes darted to Dr. Hale, Julian Carver's ring glinted, and Ellen Langley clutched her locket. Carver spoke, his voice smooth but strained. "Another glove with my initials? This is absurd, Poirot. Someone's framing me." His protest was too quick, and Poirot noted the sweat on his brow. Dr. Hale adjusted his spectacles. "The vault's artifacts could be historically priceless, but I've never seen them." His ink-stained fingers trembled, betraying his calm. Poirot addressed the group. "The diary's final pages are missing, mes amis, but they hold the key to the chest. The thief has them, or knows where they are. Speak now, or the truth will find you." Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the fire. As they dispersed, Poirot confided in Hastings. "The blood-stained glove, the trap, they point to greed and revenge. Edward Ashbourne Sip's fortune threatens the Ashbourne legacy, and the thief will kill to protect or claim it. We must find those pages, mon ami, before the watcher strikes again." The moon dipped below the horizon, leaving the manor in darkness. Poirot's thoughts churned. Carver's gloves, Hale's evasions, Ellen's locket, Sir Reginald's cufflinks. The vault beneath had revealed its treasure, but the diary's secrets were still locked away, and the blood on the glove warned that the next move could be fatal. Chapter 12. The Final Masquerade. The grand hall of Ashbourne Manor glowed under the flicker of candlelight, its shadows dancing like spectres on the walls. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his black tie impeccable, his sharp green eyes scanning the gathered guests. The clues: the stolen velvet diary, the locket inscribed E.A., the letter signed Ra, the gloves marked J.C., the torn diary page, the charred papers, Ellen Langley's true identity, the tampered map, the chandelier crash, and the blood-stained glove from the vault. had led to this moment. The diary's final secret was within reach, and Poirot was ready to unmask the thief in a final masquerade. Captain Hastings at his side whispered, "Poirot, this feels like a showdown. Are you sure you can force the thief Sep's hand?" "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching with confidence. The guilty cannot resist the stage when the truth is the spotlight. Tonight, we end this charade. He had summoned the guests: Lady Evelyn, Sir Reginald, Clara Vane, Dr. Hale, Julian Carver, Ellen Langley, Colonel Grayson, and Mr. Pembroke, to the hall, claiming a breakthrough in the case. The air was thick with tension, each face a mask of fear or defiance. Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding. "Mes amis, the Velvet Diary has woven a tale of betrayal, greed, and revenge. Its map led us to a vault beneath the chapel, where Edward Ashbourne's fortune lies, hidden from a family that cast him out. But the diary's final pages, they hold the key to a chest, and the thief among us holds those pages." He held up the torn page, its crescent moon and crossed key gleaming in the candlelight. "Tonight, I reveal the truth." He turned to Lady Evelyn, whose hands twisted her handkerchief. "Madame, you feared the diary's exposure, for it reveals your family's shame, the disinheritance of Edward Ashbourne. But you did not steal it, non?" Her nod was reluctant, her eyes darting to Sir Reginald. Poirot faced Sir Reginald, whose cufflink was missing again. "Monsieur, your ancestor profited from Edward's exile. The letter signed R.O., your work we. A demand to return the fortune, or a bluff to shift blame." Sir Reginald's face reddened, his denial stammered. "I wrote no letter. This is madness." Clara Vane's laugh cut through the tension. "You're grasping, Poirot. The diary's just a relic. I saw its symbols, smugglers' codes, nothing more." But her eyes flicked to Dr. Hale, and Poirot caught the lie in her too steady voice. He turned to Hale. "Doctor, your ink-stained fingers betray a forger Sip's skill. Did you tamper with the map to mislead us?" Hale Sip's spectacles slipped, his protest weak. "I studied the symbols. Nothing more." Poirot's gaze settled on Julian Carver, whose ring glinted. "Monsieur Carver, the gloves marked J.C. Too convenient, non? A frame, perhaps, but your ring matches the intruder's glint in the library." Carver's smile vanished, his hand clenching. Finally, Poirot addressed Ellen Langley. "Mademoiselle, you seek justice for Edward Langley, but your search in the library was not the theft. You know who took the diary." "We?" Ellen's locket trembled in her hand, her eyes pleading. Before she could speak, a crash shattered the silence. A candelabra toppled, its flames licking the curtains. Chaos erupted, guests shouting as smoke curled upward. Poirot's eyes locked onto Carver, who bolted toward a tapestry-covered wall. "Stop him!" Poirot shouted, and Hastings lunged, but Carver vanished behind the tapestry, revealing a hidden passage. Poirot and Hastings gave chase, the narrow corridor twisting through the Manor Sep's ancient walls. Dust choked the air, and the flicker of Carver Sep's flashlight ahead guided them. Henection Buven. System, the chase was on, and Poirot and Hastings raced through the dark, musty passages of Ashbourne Manor, their footsteps echoing as they pursued Julian Carver, the solicitor whose polished facade had cracked under Poirot's relentless scrutiny. The candelabra's fall had been no accident. Carver's desperate act to create chaos and escape. Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the final threads of the mystery, the gloves marked J.C., the ring glinting in the library, the tampered map, the blood-stained glove in the vault. Carver was no mere guest, he was the thief, and the Velvet Diary's final pages were his prize. The passage twisted, its walls closing in, but Poirot's focus was razor-sharp. They emerged into a cellar, where Carver stood, clutching a small crimson-bound book, the Velvet Diary. His face was pale, his eyes wild. "Stay back, Poirot," he shouted, brandishing a knife. "You'll not take this from me." Poirot's voice was calm, cutting through the tension. "Monsieur Carver, the game is over. The diary reveals Edward Ashbourne's heir, a child born to him in exile, entitled to the fortune you seek to claim. You forged the map, planted the gloves, but the blood on the glove, it is yours, none, from your attempt at the vault's lock. Carver's laugh was bitter. I'm an Ashbourne, Poirot. The fortune's mine by right. My grandfather was Edward's son, hidden to protect the family's name. I forged nothing. The gloves were Sir Reginald's, a distraction. His words confirmed Poirot's suspicions. Carver was Edward Ashbourne's grandson, driven by greed and vengeance to reclaim the hidden fortune. Hastings lunged, tackling Carver to the ground. The knife skittered away, and the diary fell from his grasp. Poirot retrieved it, his gloved hands trembling slightly as he opened the final pages. They revealed a letter from Edward Ashbourne, naming his son James Carver as his heir, and coordinates to the vault's chest. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, the final secret. Carver struggled, but Hastings held firm. You'll not rob me of my birthright, Poirot, he spat. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The law, monsieur, will decide your claim. But the theft, the traps, the candelabra, these are crimes. He handed the diary to Hastings, who secured it as the manor's servants arrived, alerted by the commotion. Back in the grand hall, Poirot addressed the guests, now subdued and shaken. Mes amis, the masquerade ends. Julian Carver, an Ashbourne by blood, stole the diary to claim a fortune hidden by his grandfather, Edward Ashbourne. The locket, the letter, the gloves, all pointed to his scheme, masked by misdirection. The diary's truth is revealed. A legitimate heir, a fortune rightfully his, but pursued through deceit. Lady Evelyn gasped, her handkerchief falling. Edward's son, alive. Sir Reginald's face paled, his cufflinks still, his legacy threatened. Ellen Langley clutched her locket, tears in her eyes, knowing her great-uncle's honour was restored, but at a cost. Poirot's voice softened. The fortune awaits in the vault, but justice will prevail. Carver's fate lies with the courts. The guests dispersed, their masks of propriety shattered, as Carver was led away, his ring no longer a symbol of stealth, but of shame. The manor fell silent, its secrets laid bare. Poirot's little grey cells rested, but only for a moment, as the weight of the final masquerade lingered, a truth uncovered, but a family forever changed. Chapter 13. The Order Restored. The dawn broke gently over Ashbourne Manor, its golden light filtering through the mist, softening the Gothic spires that had borne witness to a week of secrets and deceit. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand hall, his overcoat draped over his arm, his polished shoes reflecting the polished marble floor. The velvet diary, now recovered, lay on a table beside him, its crimson cover a silent testament to the turmoil it had unleashed. The case was solved. Julian Carver, revealed as Edward Ashbourne's grandson, had been unmasked as the thief, his greed and vengeance exposed in the final masquerade. Yet Poirot's little grey cells lingered on the human cost of the truth, a melancholy counterpoint to his triumph. Captain Hastings, packing their bags for the return to London, joined him, his face a mix of relief and exhaustion. Poirot, yous have done it again. The diary Sep's back, the fortune Sep's found, and Carver Sep's in custody. But I still don't Sept quite follow. How did you know it was him? Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. Mon ami. The truth is in the details. The gloves marked J.C., the ring in the library, the tampered map, they were too perfect, designed to point to Carver, yet not by him. He planted Sir Reginald's cufflinks, used the gloves to frame himself as a victim, but his ring betrayed him in the shadows. The blood on the glove from the vault, it was his, from a cut sustained forcing the lock. The little grey cells, they see through the masquerade. They moved to the library where Lady Evelyn sat, her silver hair loose, her eyes heavy with the weight of the past. The diary lay open to its final pages. Edward Ashbourne's letter confirming his son, James Carver, as his heir. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice soft, you've uncovered our shame. Edward was my great-uncle, betrayed by my grandfather. I feared the diary's truth would ruin us. Poirot nodded, his gaze gentle but unwavering. Madame, the truth does not ruin. It heals, though the process is painful. The fortune in the vault, gold, jewels, deeds, belongs to James Carver's line, but Julian's crimes have tainted his claim. The courts will decide, but the Ashbourne name is restored. Non? She sighed, a tear tracing her cheek. Restored, but changed. Sir Reginald is broken, knowing his inheritance was built on theft. Ellen Langley, she sought justice, not wealth. What becomes of her? Poirot's eyes turned to the window where the gardens stretched toward the maze. Mademoiselle Langley has her great-uncle's honor. She will find peace, I think, in knowing Edward Langley's love for Lilian was not forgotten. He paused, recalling Ellen's locket, its inscription E.A., a dual tribute to Edward Ashbourne and Edward Langley, bound by Lilian's heart. Hastings, ever practical, asked, "What about the others? Clara Vane, Dr. Hale, the Rudds. They all had their part in this tangle." Poirot's fingers steepled, his mind retracing the threads. Clara Vane, with her knowledge of smugglers' codes, sought adventure, not theft. Her dance card cipher was a scholar's curiosity, not a criminal's plot. Hale, his ink-stained fingers, they studied the diary's symbols, but he lacked the nerve for crime. The Rudds, Tom and Amos were pawns, their grudge against the Ashburns exploited by Carver to dig at the chapel. The letter signed, it was Carver's, not Sir Reginald's, a ruse to stir fear. He opened the diary, its final pages revealing the vault's coordinates and a map to the chest, now safely in the hands of the authorities. The fortune, Poirot continued, was Edward Ashbourne's defiance, a legacy for his son, hidden where the moon crosses the quay. The vault's trap, the poisoned darts, they were Carver's additions to protect his claim. But the blood-stained glove, it was his undoing. Hastings frowned, and Sir Reginald. His cufflinks kept turning up, like a trail of breadcrumbs. "We," Poirot said, a trail laid by Carver to cast suspicion. Sir Reginald says fear was real, but his crime was only guilt by association. His family says betrayal of Edward. He is no thief, only a man haunted by his name. As they prepared to leave, Poirot addressed the remaining guests gathered in the drawing-room. Sir Reginald sat slumped, his cufflinks abandoned, his legacy tarnished. Clara Vane's eyes sparkled with reluctant admiration for Poirot's genius. Dr. Hale clutched a notebook, his scholarly pride dented. Ellen Langley, her locket gleaming, offered a quiet nod of gratitude. Colonel Grayson and Mr. Pembroke, peripheral figures, murmured farewells, their roles in the drama minor but telling. "Monsieur Poirot," Ellen said, her voice steady, "you said given me my family Sedda's truth. The diary, it was Lilian Sedda's heart, not just a map. Thank you." Poirot bowed, his hat in hand. "Mademoiselle, the heart is the true treasure. Guard it well." He turned to Lady Evelyn. "Madam, the manor stands, and so does your honor. Let the past rest, but not in silence." As they boarded the carriage for London, the manor receding into the mist, Hastings sighed. "It sits over Poirot, but it feels heavy. So much greed, so much pain for a fortune." Poirot gazed at the horizon, his eyes distant. "Mon ami, human nature is the greatest mystery. Greed, love, betrayal, they drive us to hide truths in velvet diaries, to build vaults beneath chapels. Yet order is restored, not by gold, but by understanding. The Ashworths are free, but they carry the weight of their history." The carriage rolled on, the countryside unfolding in quiet beauty. Poirot's thoughts lingered on the diary, its crimson cover a symbol of secrets unveiled. The case had tested his genius, but it was the human heart, its passions, its flaws, that left the deepest mark. As the sun rose higher, casting light on the road ahead, Hercule Poirot closed his eyes, content that the Velvet Diary's final chapter was written, and the order of truth restored.